I was badly wounded when I took an arrow for my husband, and thus had to go far away to recover. 4 years later, when I finally returned home, my children, mother-in-law, and husband were all utterly devoted to the woman who replaced me. Lana Dou. My fury earned me nothing but a brutal joint push into the burning fire. For 20 years, I lingered as a ghost, watching the traitors savor their final ruin. Reborn, I woke to find myself back on the road home, at the very moment they anticipated my public heartbroken meltdown. I simply smiled. Skip the manor. I'll visit the Empress Dowager first. This time, I live only for myself. Their ultimate downfall will unfold beneath the undeniable brilliance of my new life. My name is Charlotte Meng, orphan of Prince Shu. When my father died in battle, I was 9. The Empress Dowager pitied me for losing my father and took me into the palace to be raised. I married at 16. At 18, I bore boy and girl twins and was deeply in love with my husband, Edward Wei. When the children were 6, I went hunting with Edward. The third prince deliberately loosed an arrow at him, half in jest, half as if he truly meant to kill. I stepped in front of it, and my internal organs were damaged. My injuries were grave, and I took the chance to weep and plead before the emperor and the Empress Dowager. The third prince was heavily punished. My husband's family had thrown in their lot with the second prince. Because of my wounds, the emperor and my father's old followers turned against the third prince, clearing obstacles from the second prince's path to becoming crown prince. Edward said to me, "Lottie, this injury of yours won't heal so easily. The third prince bears us a grudge. Better to take the chance to topple him completely." I always believed Edward and I were one, sharing honor and disgrace. For the sake of great ambitions, I had to bear this wound and go far from the capital to recuperate for 3 to 5 years, giving the court and the second prince an excuse to attack the third prince. So I did indeed go to Southern Manor. Once the second prince was made crown prince, Edward did not immediately send for me. I sensed something was wrong. When I finally returned home, I learned my place had long been taken by someone else. After my rebirth, I first went into the palace to visit the Empress Dowager. She is the only person in this world who truly treated me with a sincere heart. "It no longer troubles me," I said. The Empress Dowager took my hand. "So long as you're back, come into the palace often and sit with me, or I'll worry." I agreed. When I left, I quietly slipped the gold bangle off my wrist and tucked it beneath the cushion of her inkstone chair. It was my birth mother's keepsake. The Empress Dowager had put it on my wrist herself. She knew how much it meant to me. I returned to Duke Song's mansion in mid-afternoon. The sun slanted westward, golden light sifted through the treetops, falling in mottled patches. My husband, my children, and my mother-in-law stood together. Every face held a trace of surprise. Walking behind them was a young woman in a pale lotus-colored dress, gentle and pretty. "Lottie, why did you suddenly return today?" The steward never reported it beforehand. My mother-in-law stepped forward and took my hand. I smiled. "For me to come home, there's no need for all that fuss and formality, is there, Mother?" My mother-in-law gave a somewhat awkward smile. Edward came forward a few steps and asked about my journey. My 10-year-old twins stepped up and offered their greetings. "Lottie, you don't know her yet. This is Lana. I found her to teach Gracie needlework." My mother-in-law saw me looking at the girl in the lotus-colored dress and took the initiative to introduce her. "Lana Dou pays her respects to Madam." Lana stepped forward and bowed with composed grace. She was my mother-in-law's distant niece, widowed young, and come to seek refuge with her. Her embroidery and cooking were both exquisite. With just these 2 skills, she had won over my entire household. "Please, don't stand on ceremony." I smiled and made a motion to help her up. "While I was away, thank you for taking such care of Gracie." My daughter, Grace Wei, spoke up at once. "Mother, you don't know how wonderful Auntie Lana is." I gently smoothed her hair. "Tell me all about her later, Gracie." I did not, as in my previous life, immediately notice how everyone leaned toward Lana Dou, then darken my face and sour the atmosphere from the very first night. Instead, I laughed and chatted with them, and stayed for supper. After the meal, Edward was obviously ill at ease. "I'm tired from the journey and want to rest early. Could I trouble you to let me use the outer study for one night, my Lord Duke?" I offered myself. I knew that by this time Edward had already shared a bed with Lana. Compared to me, the one he wished to soothe that night was her. He was overjoyed. "Lottie, get a good rest." I slept peacefully through the night. The next morning, I chose my moment and lost my temper. At breakfast, Lana Dou attended as usual, standing beside my mother-in-law and helping serve the dishes. After we finished eating, a boy from the gate came to report that a nanny from the palace had arrived. Right then, I flung my bowl to the floor. Everyone stared at me in surprise. My mother-in-law and Edward both frowned slightly, confused. "I'm the Duke's wife. If you plan to take a concubine for him, why wasn't I consulted? If in mother's eyes there's no such thing as this daughter-in-law, you should have written a letter of divorce and told me not to come back." I raised my voice. Everyone was stunned. My children were the first to feel mortified. My son, Victor Y., spoke like a little adult. "Mother, to smash a bowl in front of father and grandmother, what kind of behavior is that?" My daughter looked at me in disbelief. "Mother, what nonsense have you heard? You've misunderstood Auntie Lana." My mother-in-law's face went green with anger. "Lottie, you're far too spoiled. Is this what the Empress Dowager taught you?" Only my husband Edward was quick-witted. He came over and spoke to me softly. "Lottie, perhaps you're not quite used to being home yet and didn't sleep well. Dropping a bowl by accident is nothing." He signaled to the servants. At the same time, he also signaled to my mother-in-law and Lana, but they weren't nearly as clever. "When did I ever say who the concubine would be?" I asked. Everyone froze. They had exposed themselves. Every one of them knew about Edward and Lana, including my children. Lana Dou, the Empress Dowager's woman, entered just in time to see this scene. My own person was waiting at the gate. As soon as the boy came in to report, they let Lana Dou straight through. "What's all this?" Lana Dou's expression was uneasy. "Princess, have you been wronged?" My eyes filled with tears at once. I had no idea someone else was now in charge of the household. Last night the bedding was damp, and when I wanted it changed, I couldn't find a single person. I didn't sleep at all. So just now, at breakfast, my hands went weak and I dropped a bowl. "The Duke and the Dowager Madam suspect I'm throwing a tantrum. I'm truly innocent," I said. Lana Dou looked at the others. My mother-in-law was not stupid, she reacted swiftly now. "It's a misunderstanding," she said with a forced smile. "I took an arrow for the Duke and went away to recuperate. If mother's health is poor and she needs someone to help with the household, I can understand. But if a concubine has been taken, why was I neither informed nor was it made public? I come back completely in the dark. If I hadn't seen the steward's key on her belt, I'd have naively taken her for an outsider. Now I've gained a reputation for jealousy, and others will only blame the Empress Dowager's poor teaching. Nanny, it's all because I, Lottie, am incompetent." I cried. Lana Dou's face turned dark. My mother-in-law, Lana, and Edward all looked extremely ugly at that moment. No matter whether Lana was a concubine or not, they were in a bind. I did not go on making a scene. Instead, I sobbed and left with Lana Dou to enter the palace. Lana Dou had come at dawn to deliver the gold bangle to me. The Empress Dowager knew I would fret if I lost it, so she sent it out early, and happened to bear witness for me. A single mouth of mine could never tell the story. I had learned this the hard way in my previous life. Edward was born to be an official who wielded words like blades. He could twist black and white at will. If no one sent by the Empress Dowager stood up for me, any hat they wished could be shoved onto my head, and my reputation in the capital would be ruined in no time. When I died, everyone rejoiced. They praised Lana Dou as virtuous and loyal, a fine match for the Duke. Now, Edward had to explain why, while his principal wife was away nursing wounds she'd taken for him, another mistress of the house had quietly appeared. I followed Lana Dou to the Empress Dowager's palace. The Empress Dowager drew me into her arms. This time she didn't say, "It was you who insisted on marrying Edward. I never liked him much." She only said, "If you're wronged, just stay here a few more days. A girl of the Meng family is not for the Wei family to trample." I remembered that in my past life, she had also urged me to divorce him. But I hadn't wanted to. If I divorced, it would be because my husband and children despised me. I couldn't swallow that. I had to fight them to the end. In the end, I lost my life. The only one who wept for me was the Empress Dowager. In my last life, I hadn't really believed in her feelings for me. She was a ruthless old woman, decisive in killing. How much could she really love me? I thought she was only placating my father's old followers, putting on a show. As a ghost for 20 years, I often went and watched her. Whenever she spoke of me, she cried. Raise a cat long enough, and you form an attachment. How much more so to a beautiful, obedient girl like me? The Empress Dowager truly cherished me. I proposed a divorce. Princess Huayang, Charlotte Meng, had a dowry of 108 sedan chairs. The Empress Dowager had squeezed every good thing she could into my trousseau. I wanted to take every bit of it away with me. The Wei family, of course, refused. My mother-in-law went to the palace in tears, saying I had misunderstood. Miss Dou is just a helpless widow we took in, not a concubine. And in any case, to demand a divorce simply because you won't permit your husband a concubine, what of the princess's reputation? As mistress of the household, I was supposed to take the initiative in selecting concubines for my husband, adding sons to the family. To divorce over such grounds was improper. Mother is right, I said, lowering my lashes as if thinking it over. Edward came to fetch me back from the palace. The Wei family sent Lana Dou away. Once I returned, the atmosphere at home turned heavy and oppressive. My mother-in-law even fell ill from anger. Mother, grandmother is bedridden, go make a few of her favorite dishes for her, my son Victor said to me. I don't know how, I answered. Auntie Lana always made delicious things, and grandmother got better very quickly, my son said. Not just grandmother. When I was sick, it was Auntie Lana who stayed by my bed. And you, mother? I smiled faintly. For your father's future, I helped his master, His Highness the Crown Prince, frame the third prince. I volunteered to go away to the manor. Without the charge shooting and wounding Princess Huayang, causing her old injury to worsen, how would your grandfather's old followers have slowly turned away from the third prince and gone over to the crown prince? My son froze. He was 10, already educated for years, and knew at least this much. In my previous life, I hadn't had the heart to expose Edward's greedy face for power in front of my son, and never told him this. He always blamed me, saying I was jealous and couldn't tolerate another woman. What if Lana Dou did become second wife? What noble house didn't have wives and concubines by the dozen? Compared to others, Edward, who'd only favored one woman, was already considered faithful. I shouldn't have expected him to keep only me. In this life, I no longer cared about this son. His opinion meant nothing to me. I laid everything bare. Don't wave the tiger's skin like a banner, he shouted after a moment of stunned silence. If you don't believe me, go to the manor and see for yourself. When your grandmother was ill and your father went out to handle affairs, was he secretly meeting your Auntie Lana? I said. My son turned and left. My daughter was also very upset. She wasn't so bold. Instead, she spoke to me, aggrieved and cautious. Mother, I promised to give the Empress Dowager a double-sided embroidery for her 50th birthday. Without Auntie Lana, I can't do it. Does she teach you, or does she do it for you? I asked. She teaches me, my daughter said. I'll find someone else to teach you, I replied. There are other masters of double-sided embroidery in this world. Lana Dou is not the only one. But only Auntie Lana can design this particular piece. It's unique. Only something unique will please the Empress Dowager, my daughter said. You're my daughter. Even if you handed the Empress Dowager a rag, she'd be pleased. If you weren't my daughter, even if your work were peerless, she wouldn't care. Does the palace lack embroiderers? I said. My daughter burst into tears. Mother, you can't belittle Auntie Lana like that. I laughed softly. When she exalts herself, you say nothing. When I speak a simple truth that evens the scales a little, I'm belittling her. A stupid son, a foolish daughter, just like I had been in my last life. Our bond goes only so far. The rest, I leave to fate. I brushed the dust from my sleeves. After the divorce, I planned to ask the chief steward to keep an eye on the children and leave them a modest allowance, enough to raise them to adulthood and see them married. To do what a mother ought, for they were, after all, born of my body. Beyond that, I expected nothing. When I left home, the children were 6. They should have been old enough to understand. I had left my own people to care for them. By the time I came back, everyone serving at their side had been replaced. It was my mother-in-law who'd done it. My people and hers had conflicting interests, and she naturally couldn't tolerate mine. Their feelings for me were replaced as well. No matter. I was no longer stubborn. If fate had said it so, I would not force it. I waited for a proper chance to divorce. I knew it would come soon, just as it had before. On the first day of the 9th month, I had been back at Duke Song's mansion for 3 months. My mother-in-law rose at dawn to go out, saying she would visit a temple. She didn't ask me or the children to accompany her. She only had Edward escort her. Once they left, I called my son and daughter and told them, "I'm taking you somewhere." My daughter was a little afraid of me. Her grandmother had been telling her I'd lost my mind, that my jealousy had driven me mad. She'd believed it. "Where are we going?" my son asked coldly. "To offer incense," I said with a smile. "Grandmother and father just left for that, and now you're going too." "What are you plotting?" "I'm not going. You're full of schemes," he said. My daughter hesitated. "Not only I will be there, Princess Anning will also be going. I want to introduce you to her young lordling. I heard you're eager to learn the spear from him," I said. Princess Anning was my cousin, 4 years older than I. Her son was a bold and capable youth with a spear, trained by a renowned master. His skill was said to outstrip the recent martial champion of the examinations. That champion had essentially lent his glory to the prince, lowering himself to raise the young man's name. My son had always wanted to befriend the young lord, but while I'd been away, the princess's residents had little interest in the duke's household. "Gracie, would you like to meet Princess Anning? She's much loved by the Empress Dowager," I said. My daughter wavered. My son was uncertain as well, then finally nodded. We met up with Princess Anning and boarded her enormous 8-horse carriage. My son met the young lord he admired and was very happy. Then the carriage turned off the road and headed toward the manor. Princess Anning asked me, "Huaying, where are we going?" "There's a manor of ours this way. We're just passing by. I have a small matter to attend to," I answered with a smile. Princess Anning gave me a look. "What matter?" I leaned against her, smiling. "Sister, be kind to me." Princess Anning affectionately patted my hair. "Your children are grown and you still act spoiled." Seeing how close I was with Princess Anning, my daughter felt a little envy. My son, looking at me, could hardly believe his eyes. No doubt he'd thought I'd long lost all standing in the imperial clan. Those were Edward's words to him, and Lana Dou's as well. The carriage rolled into the manor. We got out and went straight into a courtyard. When we knocked, the door opened on a beautiful woman with a slightly rounded belly. My mother-in-law held her hand, talking warmly, while Edward stood beside her, steadying her arm. Everyone but me was shocked by the sight. Of course, I also put on a look of surprise, stepping forward a few paces. "Mother, my Lord Duke, what's going on here?" I reached out toward Lana's belly. Edward reflexively blocked me. I let myself fall with the motion. The shard of porcelain hidden in my sleeve dropped into my palm and pierced my hand. Princess Anning rushed forward to help me. "Duke An, you have some nerve. Daring to strike your principal wife in front of me. Do you still acknowledge His Majesty and the Empress Dowager?" I seemed overwhelmed, stumbling as I ran out. Princess Anning followed. Her son blocked Edward when he tried to pursue us. Back in the carriage, blood dripped freely from my hand. The porcelain had gone deep. Gritting my teeth, I pulled it out and the blood gushed. "This time I helped you. You owe me a favor," Princess Anning said. "Sister, I will never forget your great kindness," I replied. She snorted. "If you divorce him, you still lose. If I were you, I'd tangle with them to the bitter end and see who outlasts whom. You're too soft." I gave a bitter smile. Most women would think as she did. "If you wrong me, I'll drag you down with me. I won't rest until we both lie shattered." But I had already died once. I'd rather live. I didn't want the only person who cared for me, the Empress Dowager, to speak of me with tears in her eyes, saying that it was her failing not to have stopped me from marrying a scoundrel. She'd always been so bold and decisive. Her one defeat was me. My death had pained those who loved me and delighted those who hated me. In my past life, after I returned home and made a scene, the Wei family had also sent Lana away. She went to the manor. I knew it. When her pregnancy became known, she had someone leak the news to me on purpose. On the first day of the 9th month, Edward used the excuse of escorting the Dowager Madam to the temple to visit Lana with his mother. I knew that too. I secretly followed. When I saw Lana's pregnant belly, I flew into a rage and wanted to drag that adulterous couple before the Empress Dowager. My mother-in-law panicked and pretended to fall. There happened to be a shard of porcelain on the ground, and it cut her hand. Edward accused me of injuring my mother-in-law on purpose. In this dynasty, a daughter-in-law who harms her husband's mother can be sentenced. Edward and my mother-in-law went to see the Empress Dowager, saying they were willing to suppress the matter so long as I didn't cause trouble. The Empress Dowager again urged me to divorce. I still refused, intent on fighting. I was so consumed by fury that I wanted nothing more than to tear them to pieces. But an angry mind is never clear, and never wins. In this life I asked Princess Anning to help me set the stage, so my children would see the truth. I also borrowed the Dowager Madam's own trick. For the sake of a mistress, beating the principal wife's hand maimed. For days the censorate was flooded with memorials accusing Edward. In my past life, Lana's child had been born outside the mansion, then brought back as a supposed adopted son. Lana never became concubine nor official mistress. After my death, Edward married her. Our laws forbid a concubine from being raised to principal wife, and a mistress from becoming the primary lady of the house. Otherwise, Edward would have gone to prison. Edward and my mother-in-law hadn't refused to make Lana a concubine for my sake, but for hers. I should have seen from the start that such people were not worth fighting. The censorate impeached Edward for 2 months. At last, the emperor lost patience and asked what I wanted. By then I had already moved out of Duke Song's mansion and returned to the old residence of Prince Shu. Our princely manor had been kept, tended by a few old servants. Edward was begging me as well. He, once handsome and elegant, the man I'd fallen for at a glance, was now gaunt, his cheekbones jutting sharp, his whole frame grown haggard. "Lottie, can't you stop this?" he said. "I'll make Lana a concubine and give her deed of sale into your hands. Would that be enough? We're a family." "This is your way of apologizing? Whether she's a concubine or bears bastards, what has that to do with me?" I said coolly. "What is it you want, then?" "A divorce, of course. And I'll be taking all of my dowry," I said. "You're not thinking of the children? Victor and Gracie are 10 already. Soon we'll be arranging their matches. With you making such a spectacle, who would dare marry into our family?" Edward said. "Edward, your tongue truly is silver. You're the one who took a mistress. You're the one who hurt me. When you went to Lana's bed, did you spare a thought for the children's future?" "Did I force you to sleep with her?" I asked. "That's sophistry. A man may have 3 wives and 4 concubines," he began. "I never forbade you to take a concubine. As master of Duke Song's mansion, you taking concubines requires more than your consent. It also requires mine, does it not?" "Did you inform me beforehand?" I asked. "What exactly do you intend going on like this?" he demanded, losing his temper. "Mother has fallen ill." "A son like you would make anyone ill," I said. "You are not allowed to insult my mother," he snapped. "Dragging your mother out again. When have I ever been disrespectful to her?" "I'm insulting you, Edward Way," I said. We parted on bad terms. The entire Way family came to find me. My mother-in-law came first. In a few sentences I had her speechless. Why had she given the steward's keys to Lana, and why had she helped Lana win my children over? My son and daughter came too. I put on the full majesty of a mother. "If you won't stand by me, you're unfilial. Better, we sever our ties." Last to come was Lana Dou. Her belly had flattened. "Madam, I lost the child. It was my fault. I didn't know my place. Please forgive the Duke, my lady. I'll go back to my hometown and never appear before you again," she sobbed. I looked quietly at Lana Dou. She had an oval face and almond eyes that made her look innocent and pure. But her grasp of human hearts was unmatched. She was strong-willed, with a clear goal. She wanted to be mistress of the Duke's household. In my last life, I didn't learn until later that she and Edward had been in love as children. My mother-in-law had looked down on her impoverished family and forced her cousin to marry Lana off far away. It had lodged like a thorn in Edward's heart. It's not that he didn't care for me. Raised under the Empress Dowager's favor, admired by many sons of noble houses, with a soft, naive temper and a beautiful face, who wouldn't covet such a bride? Edward did have some affection for me. While whispering sweetly in my ear, he never forgot Lana. Over Lana, he had come to resent his own mother. Their relationship was terrible for a time. Laughable that when I married in, I tried my best to mend things between them. Lana was widowed first. When Edward heard, he was overjoyed and begged his mother to bring her back to the capital somehow. I was shot later. With one stroke, Edward achieved two ends, persuading me to go south to recover. Once I'd left the capital, my mother-in-law, eager to win back her son's heart, brought Lana into the mansion as needlework teacher for her granddaughter. Lana had suffered in her late husband's home and tasted the bitterness of living without power. She returned with a single aim: to marry Edward again. Not as concubine, not as mistress. For now, as a stopgap, she had to get rid of the child. She was willing to pay for it with her health, even if she might never conceive again. If I'd had even half her ruthlessness, I would never have let them kill me. Miss Dou, I will never forgive Edward, I said. Lana raised her pale face. My lady, I deserve to die. Allow me to kowtow to you. You can smash your head open and win no pity. This is my family's manor. Everyone here belongs to me. Even if you die on this spot, no one will side with you, I said coldly. Lana bit her lip. My lady, what would you have me do? If there's any way to mend this, I'll do my utmost, she said. Can you turn back time? I asked. My lady? Without time itself reversing, no making amends meant anything to me. I had walked the wrong road. Now I wanted only to return to the right one. You've lost the child. Won't Edward hate me even more for it? If I go back now, my whole family will be my enemies. To live amidst one's enemies is to have no one to speak for you on the day you die. Miss Dou, am I truly such a fool in your eyes? All this you've done, merely a retreat to advance, so that Edward and the Dowager Madam will pity you more, I said. A faint tremor passed over Lana's cheeks. So you suffered for nothing. I won't change my mind. I'll still divorce him, I went on. Then I added, you are merciless. You can kill your own child. Those two of mine, foolish and spiteful as they are, I still never thought of abandoning them. Lana's fists clenched tight. I continued, your show's gone far enough. Take your remaining pitiful act and sell it to Edward and the Dowager Madam. Don't waste it on me. I had two rough-handed matrons carry her carefully back to Duke Som's mansion, with orders not to let her get so much as a scratch. At the same time, I sent people to the tea-houses to buy off the storytellers, having them spin a tale, under other names, of Edward Way and Lana Dou's love and hate, and of the poor, innocent original wife caught in between, Princess Huayan, me. Duke Som's name became notorious. Everyone cursed Edward as ungrateful and heartless. When they spoke of how I'd taken an arrow for him and been bedridden for 4 years, they praised my father as a loyal, heroic general, and me as a pure beauty with a rich dowry. After months of gossip, Edward couldn't stand it any longer. He divorced me and returned my entire dowry. The children can't go with you, he said. I smiled. 2 unfilial brats? They're all yours. To be without love is to be light and free. I had no interest in holding on to anyone who did not love me. I wanted to keep my life. Every art a noblewoman should know, I'd learned. Managing property was the most basic of them. My dowry was enormous. The princely household still had some old estates, and over my 4 years in Jiangnan, I had quietly done business. Fortune favored me, and I'd turned many a profit. In my solitude, I grew rich beyond counting. I sent rare antiques and paintings out of my house like water, gifting them freely to my cousin, Princess Anning. She often invited me to her residence, and constantly praised me. The great houses of the capital always flocked to the powerful. Seeing the Empress Dowager and the princess favor me, they sent me invitation after invitation. I accepted many. After I divorced, Edward did not marry Lana. In my past life, once they'd sacrificed me and stripped me of my dowry, Duke Song's mansion had flourished. Edward and Lana lived comfortably for several years. In this life, Edward had to think more carefully. With their affair exposed, Lana's reputation was in ruins. If she became duchess, no other noble family would willingly associate with her. The Dowager Madam could not accept that, and neither, in his heart, could Edward. He was selfish to the core. With his victory no longer assured, Lana was no longer so demure and graceful as in my last life. Her greed and anxiety began to show. Edward hated worldly, calculating women most of all. The more he saw, the less he liked her. They grew sick of each other. Duke Som's mansion was in constant turmoil. I had no time for them. I often went into the palace to accompany the Empress Dowager. Lady Wang of the harem would sometimes come by with her young prince. I treated everyone with an aloof courtesy, except the 8th prince. He was 13 that year. I brought him pastries, asked about his lessons. Because I liked him, the Empress Dowager softened a little toward his mother and him. Thinking of Victor? The Empress Dowager asked me. She assumed that because the 8th prince and my son Victor were about the same age, I treasured the prince for that reason. I shook my head. No, Victor is very like Edward, cold and arrogant. Our bond as mother and son ended the day I divorced. I simply think the 8th prince is intelligent and sturdy, with a fine face. The Empress Dowager was taken aback. For the first time, she gave me a faintly stern warning. Huayang, one must be careful with one's words in the palace. Meaning, I must not get involved in the struggles between princes. Your Majesty, I've done nothing out of line, nor do you need to show him special favor. I only use missing my son as an excuse to be a little closer to him, I said. I knew that in a few years the crown prince would be deposed, dragged down in a struggle between factions of powerful families. The 3rd prince, long vying for the position, would die of illness. Of the adult princes left, none had much ability or the bearing of an emperor. I had been a ghost for 20 years. I knew that 20 years hence, many great events would shake the capital. The 8th prince would be the future crown prince. I treated him and his mother kindly without speaking of interests or pledges, gathering only the thinnest thread of personal goodwill. Time turned quickly, and the balance of power shifted. 4 years later, the crown prince was indeed deposed. Aristocratic clans forced him down. The 3rd prince died as well. At 17, the 8th prince was named heir. The position of empress had been vacant for a long time. Lady Wang's father and brothers had great military merits, and she was made empress. Having seen much of palace coldness and intrigue, Empress Wang liked none of the noblewomen, except me. She never forgot the bit of kindness I'd shown her and her son when they were still neglected. She had the Empress Dowager's ambition, but also a sliver of softness in her heart. My own values soared. The emperor even wanted to grant me another marriage, saying that if I remarried and bore a son, that child could inherit Prince Shu's title and be a prince of the 2nd rank. I went to him in tears and used my dead father as a shield to refuse the imperial match. Just then, my ungrateful son Victor came to see me. Mother, here's an invitation. Next month I will be formally betrothed, he said. Of the 6 rites of marriage, betrothal required the groom's family to hold a feast for close kin. I glanced at the invitation and said indifferently, I don't know if I'll be free. I had no intention of going. In this life, I had never planned to step foot in Duke Song's mansion again. Victor's expression shifted. Mother, after all these years you still can't forgive us? We never harmed you. I looked at him. Since the divorce, I had devoted myself to living this life well, making money, building connections, honoring the Empress Dowager. I rarely looked back. His words brought the memories of my gruesome death flooding back. By cruel coincidence, in my past life, I had died on this very day. It had been on the day Victor came to see me. The memory of my death rose up, every detail sharp as glass. In my previous life, one wrong step had led to another, until I died on the 1st day of the 9th month in the 32nd year of Yongchang. That day, like today, the autumn sun was bright, the sky a clear blue bowl without a cloud, a faint fragrance of flowers in the air. I died in Huining Tower of Duke Song's mansion. As in this life, I had returned to the capital and discovered Edward and Lana's affair. My rage had been boundless. From that moment on, anger ruled me. I raged through the mansion, drove Lana out. Edward sulked at me. Do you know she's Gracie's teacher? You can't even tolerate your child's benefactor. Is she a benefactor? I asked him. I won't argue with you. You're the exalted Princess Huayang, with the Empress Dowager behind you, he said. He thought me far too overbearing. After Lana left, my daughter Gracie was deeply disappointed. She cried in secret many times, wanting Lana back. My son Victor was also angry. He loved Lana's crystal-braised pork knuckle. No one else could make it to his taste. My mother-in-law went in secret to visit pregnant Lana. I followed and was accused by Edward of assaulting my mother-in-law. Even the Empress Dowager had to soothe the Wei family and protect me. I returned to Duke Song's mansion. Victor knew Lana was at the manor carrying his father's child. He gathered good medicines and brought them to her, eating at her table. Seeing his sister so sad, he brought Gracie there too. Their betrayal came to light quickly. I summoned them both. Victor, kneel to me. He curled his lip. How terrifying is the Princess Huayan's power. He mimicked his father, slapping the label of abusing authority on me at every turn. My daughter, softer by nature, dropped to her knees. Mother, it's all my fault. Don't be angry with brother. I'll never go see Auntie Lana again. Victor, a child yet, aped Edward's manner. From now on, we're all your slaves, Princess Huayang. I trembled with fury and hurled a vase at him. That night I was still seething and coughed non-stop, bringing up blood. My children drifted further and further from me. They told everyone I'd gone mad. The Empress Dowager called me to ask what had happened and urged me to divorce. I clung stubbornly to my hatred and would not. Victor shoved me once. He adored Lana like a mother and was the picture of filial piety to his grandmother. Every time he saw me, it was with mockery and spite. My daughter grew afraid of me and slowly drew away. The second year after my return, Lana bore her child, left the baby at the manor to be raised, and went back to Duke Song's mansion. She was just as she had been in this life, soft and delicate, always quietly provoking me. I couldn't endure it. I punished her and Edward pitied her more. My son and daughter blamed me. Everyone outside said I'd lost my mind. The Wei family never actually locked me up. They only pushed me, a little at a time. My most capable stewardess died, murdered horribly before my eyes. The little dog I kept was stoned to death. I went mad, ready to tear down the whole house. I slept badly, ate worse, and lived as taut as a drawn bowstring. It was my own idea to move to Huining Tower to rest. Mother, you must come out, there's a fire, my son shouted outside my door. Smoke billowed. I flung the door open, seeing Victor standing at the top of the stairs. Flames licked somewhere below. I grabbed his arm. Come, we have to go. Victor, hurry. He pushed me away. As I fell from the stair, I heard him say, I'm about to be betrothed. With such a crazy mother, no decent family will want me. Mother, do one good thing for your son. The staircase was high. I tumbled down. Huining Tower burned to the ground. I died there on the steps. The Empress Dowager was furious, but Victor took Gracie into the palace and said, it was Mother who chose to live in Huining Tower. She'd been mad for a long time. Your Majesty, she not only tormented herself, she tormented me. He rolled up his sleeves to show arms covered in bruises. He had made them himself, then used them to accuse me. My daughter only sobbed. She, like me, was foolish, innocent and helpless. Tears streamed down the Empress Dowager's face. The Wei family told everyone I was insane. A madwoman who burned herself to death had finally ended the Wei family's suffering. People pitied Duke Song's mansion, saying he'd finally survived, no longer tormented by a lunatic wife. My son's testimony was the deadliest weapon against me. Why did he hate me so? When I left home, he'd only been 6, just 1 year into his schooling. In those first lessons, my daughter Gracie had been quick and bright, learning things at once. Victor loved to play and couldn't focus. I had indeed been stricter with him. For that, he held a lifelong grudge, helping outsiders torment me, drive me mad, and finally kill me. And now he stood before me on the very same day and month as then, not to set the fire, but to say, we never harmed you. Had I retreated a step slower, I'd have been torn open all over again. They hadn't changed at all. I had changed, and in changing, I saved myself. As a ghost, I tried to take revenge, only to find I was lighter than the wind and could do nothing. All I could do was watch. 1 year after my death, Edward married Lana. She soon conceived again and bore a pair of boy and girl twins. My son Victor's marriage was delayed again and again. He didn't wed until he was 20, and that to a woman from a modest family, because Lana refused to provide a proper bride price. She told him, it's your mother's terrible reputation that brought this on. For Edward's career, she married my daughter to the son of an official useful to him, never mind that the man was a wastrel. Lana and Edward had several good years. She even took the initiative to bring him 4 bed servants, far more accommodating than I had ever been. But Edward's eye wandered again. He even began to pine for my beauty, saying, in all the capital, no woman could compare to the once peerless Princess Huayang. Lana coughed up blood from rage. Her relationship with the Dowager Madam also soured. My dowry was squandered. When Victor went to Edward for money and Lana said there was none, they nearly came to blows. In the end, Edward offended a powerful figure while trying to play both sides. Lana was clumsy at social maneuvering and unconsciously made enemies. Duke Anne's title was stripped. Victor went back to the country to till a few thin fields, from a duke's heir to a farmer. My daughter endured constant torment from her husband's family. Her 2 children both died young. She herself died before 30. On the eve of her death, she crawled to my grave, clutched the stone and called me mother, over and over. I finally understand you, mother, mother. Once in her ignorance, she had sided with Lana in hurting me, breaking my heart. In those last cries, she tore my soul apart all over again. Whenever I remembered that scene, I felt as if I could not breathe for the pain. In this life, over the past 4 years, I had arranged for 2 trustworthy matrons to be placed at my daughter's side, hoping to pick a more reliable husband for her. It was all I could do. I would not beg her to love me, not while she was still at the age to favor Lana. But I would not force myself not to love her either. She was my child. She had already repented in her previous life. I forgave her. In the 33rd year of Yongchang, my daughter Grace Wei became engaged. The groom's surname was Wang. He was Empress Wang's nephew. 4th young Master Wang was tall and rough-hewn, skilled in the martial arts. He was a little wooden, not much for words. Lana saw him and was displeased. This man isn't very good, is he? But in this life she wasn't Duchess. She was only Edward's concubine. Edward had taken a new wife, more shrewish than I had ever been. That new wife cursed Lana. You filthy woman, blinded by lard, Empress Wang's own nephew, and you're picking faults? Let that reach anyone's ears, and our whole clan could suffer. My daughter had met 4th young Master Wang once and hadn't much liked him. She was still close to Lana, learning embroidery from her. He looks so fierce, she said. Lana replied, I don't think much of him. The matron attending my daughter was one of mine. She reported everything she overheard to the Dowager Madam. Edward, the Dowager Madam, and the new Duchess all wanted a match with the Wang family, so they scolded Lana soundly and forbade her from seeing my daughter again. My daughter, uneasy, married. Unexpectedly, the seemingly rough 4th young Master Wang cherished his wife to the bone. He noticed the smallest things. Grace was very happy. Her parents-in-law were not exactly easygoing, but shrewd and capable, and since she was my daughter, they treated her with the utmost courtesy and respect. With her husband's love and encouragement at home and her parents-in-law's praise outside, her social world gradually widened. She even started visiting me. Whenever I saw her, I only spoke lightly, had people present her with a few gifts, and never kept her for meals. She still went back to Duke Anne's mansion to see Lana. But once she'd seen more of the world, she began to feel Lana was wrong in every way. Later, some woman tried to seduce 4th young Master Wang. He rebuked her harshly, and his parents threw her out. My daughter suddenly realized her tricks were exactly the same as Lana's. When she came to see me, she was pregnant and had sewn a little sachet for me. Mother, were you very wronged in the past? She asked. I didn't answer, but tears slid shamefully down my face. It's nothing, I said, turning away. You risked your life for father, and then for his career you left the capital, parted from your children. And in the end... She trailed off, crying herself. A couple's hearts turning cold to each other, a mother parted from her children, every cut like a blade into the heart. I turned and fled back to my room. Tears surged, I sobbed until I couldn't breathe. My foolish daughter, I hated her for coming now to rake through my old wounds. From that day on, Grace never again saw Lana. When Lana came looking, she had 1,000 taels of silver delivered to her, with the message it was tuition for teaching her embroidery. And that was the end of their connection. 2 more years passed, and Edward's new wife divorced him as well. She and her family, eager to please me and Empress Wang, spoke ill of Edward everywhere. Edward was later imprisoned for corruption. My son Victor's marriage prospects had already been ruined twice by Lana's meddling. Now, with Edward divorced and in jail, no respectable family would give him their daughter. Victor came begging me again. Publicly I said, I have no such son. He is Edward Y's son. He hated me for it and came to Prince Shu's manor to call me vicious, saying I'd cut off my own son's hopes. Why did you give birth to me? He demanded. I had asked myself the same question. Why did I bear him? I'll die because of you. It's your fault. You've driven your own son to his death, he threatened. I threw a knife at his feet myself. Neja returned his bones to his father and flesh to his mother. If you have any scrap of courage, die at my door, I shouted. Victor froze. Then he scrambled away as fast as he could. If he'd really drawn that blade across his skin, perhaps I might have forgiven him, because he was still my son. At 20, Victor finally married, this time to the illegitimate daughter of a minor official in the capital, not the woman he took in my past life. The Dowager Madame of Duxon's line died. Edward died in prison. Lana, in poverty, tried to return to her hometown and died on the road. The inn wrapped her body in a mat of rags and dumped her in a mass grave. Victor was left with nothing. As before, he went to a village and worked the land. Mother, may I help brother a little? My daughter asked. Farming isn't begging, he has a few acres of land. Many have nothing. Why does he need saving? I said. Harsh words. But my daughter's heart was soft. She snuck silver to her sister-in-law anyway. With that help, Victor bought some more fields. Knowing he had no way back, he bent his head to the furrows and worked. When I saw him again, I was 48. Grace had borne her third child. Victor came to drink the full-month wine. At 30, he was tanned dark, his manner simple and honest, as if he had become a different man. I barely knew him. He called me mother. I didn't answer. Last time Maggie had a fever, sister said you found the medicine. Thank you, mother, he said, his voice sincerely respectful. Maggie was his daughter. Having become a father himself, he seemed to understand something of what parents feel for their children. He no longer hated me so deeply. Maggie is a good child, I said. She's terribly stupid. Teaching her 2 characters is harder than hoeing 3 acres. When I scold her, she sulks for days. Just like when you taught me to write, and I resented you for years, he said. My eyes, traitorously, grew hot. Victor, there is no longer any bond between us as mother and son. There's no need to say this, I said. He nodded. Mother, would you like Maggie to stay with you for a few days? He asked. You could teach her. I knew there was no scheme behind it. He simply wanted to mend something between us. Otherwise, he would have offered his son, not his daughter. He had 2 boys. There's no need, I refused. I lived alone in a great princely manor, lacking neither power nor wealth. I had learned to enjoy solitude and life itself. Grace, finished with her month in confinement, had grown plumper, radiantly well-fed. She came over and spoke with me and Victor. A light breeze stirred under the eaves where we stood. I had carried both of them for 10 months, borne them out of my flesh and blood. Once, in their ignorance, they had tried to take my life, to drain me dry. Now they were adults with families of their own. The 3 of us stood together like 3 unrelated trees. No more than 3 unrelated trees. Nothing more.